Elizabeth Short, later dubbed the Black Dahlia by the press, was a 22-year-old aspiring actress born on July 29, 1924, in Hyde Park, Boston. She arrived in post-war Los Angeles chasing a screen career and a shot at stardom. By late 1946 and early 1947, Los Angeles was booming but fractured. Studios like MGM, Warner Brothers, and RKO dominated the economy. Returning World War II veterans flooded the job market, and cheap housing and transient camps spread across Echo Park, Skid Row, and the city's outskirts. Short cultivated a glamorous image: dark hair, tailored clothes, and talk of screen tests and agents. She used different names and aliases in letters and told acquaintances she was pursuing film work while moving between rooming houses and friends' places, a precarious existence common to many young hopefuls. The tabloid press, including the Los Angeles Examiner and the Herald Express, along with national wire services, hungered for scandal, feeding readers lurid human interest copy and amplifying rumors. That restless media culture, combined with a mobile population of entertainers, servicemen, and sex workers, created a volatile environment where disappearances drew immediate, sensational attention. In that charged post-war atmosphere, a shocking crime would soon seize local and national headlines, turning one young woman's name into an obsession and exposing the grim currents beneath the city's glamorous surface. On the morning of January 15, 1947, housewife Betty Bersinger was walking through a vacant lot near 39th Street and Norton Avenue in the Leimert Park section of Los Angeles when she spotted what at first looked like a discarded mannequin. Up close, it was anything but the severed, mutilated, and grotesquely posed body of a young woman. LAPD patrolmen and homicide detectives were on the scene within hours. They cordoned off the bloodless lot, photographed the grisly tableau, and called coroner investigators to examine a torso bisected at the waist, apparently drained of blood, with surgical incisions and a slit-like wound across the face. There was no identification on the body and no witnesses who could place the victim at the lot. The case presented a baffling list of details. The bisection looked surgical. The body had a washed appearance as if it had been cleaned, and the deliberate posing suggested a perpetrator unusually comfortable with violence. Detectives scoured hospitals, morgues, and rooming houses and compiled missing person reports, but leads were scarce and time was slipping. Subscribe. Maybe it will help us solve the case. Local newspapers seized the story. The Los Angeles Examiner and the Herald Express ran lurid photographs and breathless copy, and within days, editors, angling for readers, dubbed the unknown woman the Black Dahlia, a nickname that echoed the recent 1946 film The Blue Dahlia and framed public discussion in noir terms. Sensational headlines and intrusive theories flooded the public sphere, producing a rush of tips, hoaxes, and anonymous letters to both police and editors. Those distractions overwhelmed investigators and shaped the narrative before detectives could assemble a definitive timeline. Momentum from the press collided with the inquiry, turning a search for answers into a citywide spectacle. In the days after January 15, 1947, the investigation spiraled into a chaotic, blood-stained maze as LAPD homicide squads chased an avalanche of leads and dead ends. Detectives interviewed dozens of witnesses and arrested Robert "Red" Manley, a married salesman who admitted giving Elizabeth Short, later dubbed the Black Dahlia, by the press rides around Los Angeles in the days before her death. Manley was quickly cleared, and the inquiry moved through a parade of suspects: cab drivers, transient drifters, flamboyant nightclub owners, and even practicing physicians. Reporters picked over each name with hungry curiosity. Hundreds of tips flooded police and newspaper desks. Dozens of false confessions followed, some from unstable men chasing notoriety, others obvious hoaxes meant to bait the press. Investigators made critical procedural missteps along the way. Evidence custody was uneven, chain of custody records were incomplete, and notebooks and photographs later went missing, leaving gaps that would haunt the case for decades. Rivalry between LAPD detectives, the county coroner's office, and tabloid editors turned routine decisions into political theater, hampering cooperation and letting competing versions of the crime harden in public view. Forensics in 1947 offered blunt instruments, fingerprint cards, rudimentary blood typing, handwriting comparison, and polygraph tests. There was no DNA, no computerized databases, and no modern toxicology, so pathological descriptions and circumstantial links could not produce a courtroom-ready suspect. Over time, the mystery metastasized. Lurid newspaper narratives in the Los Angeles Examiner and Herald Express took hold. Amateur sleuths and private investigators reconstructed alternate scripts. In 1949, investigators began to scrutinize Dr. George Hodel, a wealthy Los Angeles physician whose name surfaced again when his son, retired LAPD Detective Steve Hodel, published accusations in 2003. Each competing story deepened the wound in public memory and set the stage for an even darker Act 3. Decades after January 15, 1947, the Black Dahlia case refused to fade. Scholars, journalists, and retired detectives kept reopening brittle files, scanning yellowed autopsy photos, and pressing police records for fresh scrutiny. In the 1980s and 1990s, authors like John Gilmore and James Ellroy reignited public interest with books and reporting that reprinted the mutilated autopsy images and reconstructed timelines, while television documentaries retold the grisly crime to new audiences. In 2003, retired LAPD Detective Steve Hodel published Black Dahlia Avenger and publicly accused his father, Los Angeles physician Dr. George Hodel, of being the killer. George Hodel, a wealthy doctor who lived in Los Angeles and died in San Francisco in 1999, had been a peripheral figure in earlier inquiries. Hodel's case rested on alleged handwriting matches, purported photographic correlations between crime scene and family photos, medical knowledge inferred from the bisection and incision patterns, and archival research. The claims made headlines and polarized researchers but led to no arrest or criminal charge. Modern forensic attempts, re-examination of autopsy photos, limited blood typing, handwriting analysis, and digital enhancements ran into degraded evidence, gaps in the chain of custody, and missing documentation, so promising leads could not be turned into prosecutable proof. Elizabeth Short's surviving relatives endured relentless publicity and recurring grief as witnesses, original detectives, and suspects died or disappeared, shrinking the pool of living testimony and narrowing avenues for corroboration. Repeated near breakthroughs, new theories, alleged matches, and confessions later debunked gave bursts of hope that collapsed under legal and evidentiary scrutiny, leaving a tense, unresolved expectation that pushed investigators and families toward another fraught reckoning. Everything reached a fever pitch in 2003 when retired LAPD Detective Steve Hodel published Black Dahlia Avenger and publicly accused his father, Dr. George Hodel, of the murder. Hodel revived yellowed autopsy photographs, alleged handwriting comparisons, and grainy family snapshots as disputed evidence. National tabloids, cable documentaries, and true crime shows replayed the severed, mutilated images and amplified his thesis. Authors John Gilmore and James Ellroy reused grisly photos and timelines, helping turn tentative leads into a media trial. Publishers ran excerpts, network producers staged confrontational interviews, and public debate shifted from cold case procedure to ritualized accusation. LAPD spokespeople repeatedly noted that George Hodel died in 1999 and that no criminal charges were ever filed. But the narrative of guilt spread across broadcasts. Forensic experts pointed to missing chain of custody, degraded negatives, and inconclusive handwriting analysis, while prosecutors warned that decomposed evidence and dead witnesses made prosecution impossible. The bitter irony hardened. In the court of public opinion, the Black Dahlia case seemed to grow clearer and more damning, even as legal closure slipped further away, leaving a lasting wound on family and city memory. After the 2003 media firestorm sparked by Steve Hodell's Black Dahlia Avenger, the case left several lasting concrete effects. Newsrooms re-examined their practices after publications, and broadcasters repeatedly ran grisly autopsy photos and unvetted accusations, fueling debates over media ethics and privacy. True crime books and television also shifted toward darker, more narrative-driven storytelling, a change that traces back to the Dahlia's sensational coverage. The glossy myth of Los Angeles and Hollywood was pierced by a raw, blood-soaked reality that reshaped public perceptions of post-war city life. Police departments slowly improved cold case work, stricter evidence custody, centralized records, and renewed attention to chain of custody, though gaps remain. For Elizabeth Short's family, the unsolved January 15, 1947 killing is still a raw, unresolved wound. Future retellings should restore Elizabeth's humanity, reject exploitative spectacle, and ask why this mutilated, unsolved crime continues to haunt us.